said to him, let's go down to the Brecon Beacons and photograph that lone tree. I haven't seen it in ages. Literally, I've been there twice and not for years, and I can't get there on my own. I don't know where it is. It's just like in the middle of this barren, well, fields. There's nothing here but sheep, and it's beautiful, but I have not a flipping clue how to find this particular lone tree. So I said to Dave, the oracle of the Brecon Beacons in South Wales, he knows it. Of course he does, he knows it. So we've been trudging through this field, beautiful as it is, and he says, yep, this is the tree. I said, that's not that. I knew it. I knew we were talking about two different trees. So we've got to that, which is very nice. I'll admit, it is very nice. It is pretty, but it's not the tree that I thought I was going to get to. So anyway, I've got my coffee. I'm going to sit and enjoy that. But yeah, the light's good. So that's one thing. That's something, isn't it? The light's amazing, and it might be perfect for time lapse. So yeah, beautiful place, beautiful view. Not the tree I was expecting, but yeah, we'll work with it. We've got. So I've just taken the shot. I've just taken the shot and go home now. What was I about? 135mm, f8, focus on the tree, and then you got the mountains in the background as well. So it's a really, really nice scene. It's just yeah, just not the one I wanted. So now we've established this is not the tree.
It is a tree.
It is a tree, it's not the tree.
You're nitpicking.
I'm specific with which trees I have. Have you got a shot that you like? That's the more important thing.
I got a shot.
Is it worth me nicking?
Can I have it if you like?
I'm just going to wait to see what you come up with, because I don't know. From this angle, I must admit, let's have a look at what you've got. Very nice, Mr. Dave. Very nice. It's very close. It's like a portrait of a tree.
It's compact and bijou.
Pikachu. All we can hear from across the field is beep beep. It's like I'm photographing with Roadrunner. Beep beep.
There's a couple of beeps then.
This is one of those locations where a tripod just gets in the way. So handheld, I had the idea of getting like a compression shot, so I'll be standing further back with a 100mm lens, 100 to 400, and zooming in from a distance to sort of bring in the background. But I'm actually thinking a wide shot, including the sky. So you're probably watching this thinking this seems like the obvious shot to go for, but I'm going to go for the minimal, big sky, tiny little tree in the bottom right hand corner, and keeping it dead simple. It's an easy shot, but I'm playing it safe. The rocks, I think, as Dave just said, I think it will make either a nice subtle colour edit, or low contrast, or a black and white, which we'll see, because the light's changed. We did have some nice side lights on it, but that's buggered off. So yeah, wide angle, I'm about 24mm, I am 24mm, and just moving the camera around, just getting some different angles, different perspectives, whether to include more of the rocks on the right hand side or just to include the rocks that are to the left of the tree there. So yeah, covering all bases, but yeah, still good that this is not the tree that I came to photograph. So glad I remembered this. Absolutely essential, make sure you've got one of these sit mats in your bag, because this grass is soaking wet, so it means I can sit in front of my tree, get my composition right, and enjoy my coffee. Yeah. So I was wandering around handheld because I thought this location was not going to work with a tripod, too restrictive. But what I've noticed is these pile of rocks that sort of curve into the bottom right hand corner and lead your eye up to the tree. And that means I've got a focus stack, because even on a wide angle lens I'm probably only about 1.5 meters away from the first rock, so I'd have to focus there, focus halfway through, and focus on the tree. I probably could get away with just 2 focuses actually, but yeah, so I'm gonna have to use the tripod and balance it a little bit more. I'm worried that the rocks are kind of pushing the tree away, because when it was just a tree on its own, it was a really, really nice photograph, nice and simple, and it was obvious to the viewer what they were supposed to be looking at, what the photograph was of. Otherwise, it's just a photograph of a pile of rocks with a tiny tree in the background. So I don't want to go any wider than 24mm. F11 focusing on there. So yeah, but yeah, the light's gone flat, but at least there's some nice tone in the sky, and I'll be able to bring that back in post. But what I want to know is why more people don't use this facility, this feature. Now on the Fuji, which we're filming on now, I use it every day without fail. On the Nikon, I've had to assign something similar because it doesn't quite do the same thing on the Nikon. But on the Fuji, you've got what's called natural live view, and that basically gives you an idea of what the RAW is going to look. If you're photographing RAW, and I've assigned a button on the back. I use it that often. I've assigned my back right button on all my cameras, even the X100V. I've assigned a button so that I can toggle between what the RAW would look like and what the sort of JPEG processed looking whatever simulation you're using in your camera will look like. What it basically does, in a nutshell, is if you're taking photographs and you're using your histogram to get the exposure all the way to the right, so you know you're not clipping, but if you're using something like a landscape profile or one of the Fuji profiles of, you know, Velvia or something like that, Astia, you're not actually seeing the raw histogram. If you toggle, say for example, if you turned all your contrast down and everything like that and get a flat profile, you find actually you can actually push the exposure more to the right. So what it means is, if I'm in a really high contrast scene like this, if I push my histogram all the way to the right and think this is as far as I can go, and I know I'm going to have to lift the shadows in post, if I put it in natural live view, I could actually find that I could push the exposure even further to the right, which will obviously lift the shadows even more, which obviously gives me a cleaner file in the long run. So on the Nikon, I've got the record button in still mode. So in still mode, I use the record button. And I actually use, to photograph, I'm actually in flat mode. So on the Nikon, you've got this profile called flat, and if I press it again, I can go to the left and go to landscape, or I can go to standard, or I can go to portrait, or whatever I want to do, black and white. But at least with flat mode, I can see an accurate version of what the histogram will look like, so I'll get the most light hitting the sensor as possible, and then I'm not putting that much pressure on the file when I get back to Lightroom. So on the Fuji, because I shoot with my Fuji every day for work, I use the natural live view as a toggle all the time, just to make sure my exposure is right. I have to be careful in video mode, because if you're looking in video mode, you press record, and you're not in a log mode, you're going to get overexposed files. But in stills, it's such a handy facility to have, and I don't know why other people don't do it. So yeah, I always assign. It's one of the first things I do with every camera is assign a button to natural live view or to something similar. So if you've got a Canon or something like that, just look. I know it's probably called flat or something like that, but just look for that profile, set your camera up, do some test exposures in RAW, and then look at the RAWs on your computer and see what's more realistic, what's more accurate to what you'll actually get from your RAW file. Because if you're shooting in landscape, it might look prettier, but then flick it over like I'm doing now. If I take a photograph here and I press and hold my record button, I'll go over to the left. I've got landscape, so I get a nice pretty version of what the image might look like. But then to see the exposure, if I slide back to flat, I'll get a more accurate histogram. So obviously I'll get more a cleaner exposure. Quite often you might notice that you think you've got your exposure to the right, and then you open the raw file in Lightroom and you've actually got like a quarter of a stop or a third of a stop or something, where you could have pushed the exposure to the right a bit more. That could be handy when you're doing waterfall exposures, when you think, oh, I can only go to a quarter of a second because I'm clipping. Or if you looked at the raw file, you would actually see that you probably go to half a second, but you obviously would only see that if you were in natural live view or a flat viewing mode. But yeah, it's really handy. But anyway, do experiment with it, and I'm very surprised that more photographers don't use it, because I use it every day. And literally as I'm setting up this scene now, it looks crap in flat mode, it doesn't look very good at all, but at least I can see my exposure, and then I can revert back to either mono, or I can revert back to whatever mode I'm using to take the photograph. But anyway, hope that helps. Let's grab this shot. Alright, so this tree is difficult. I focused that on here, just pointing, taking a shot with my finger in front of the camera so I can see where I'm focusing. Take a shot there, 2-second timer. Although I have just remembered that the ibis is still on the camera. When will I ever get that? So let's do that again. 2-second timer, focusing on the rocks in the foreground with my finger there so I know where I'm focusing, and then one without. Now I'm in mono mode at the minute. I'm taking the photograph with the camera in mono mode. So it gives me an idea of sort of shot that I'll end up with. But obviously if I just press record, hold record, and push the camera to the right, 1, 2, 3, I'm back into flat mode so I can check my histogram. If I go back to mono mode, my histogram is actually saying I'm clipping, but I know because I've checked the flat mode that I'm not. So let's take the next photograph. So focusing on the tree, put my finger in the shot so it shows I'm pointing at the tree. It's not a great photograph, The light's gone flat and crap and all that. I don't even think it's going to work. It's not even balanced. I can't even get the tree on the third or anything, but I'll work it. But I think that tip of just using that flat view just to get your histogram right, and then just check it with your raw file, just check it, just make sure when you put that file into Lightroom or whatever you use that it's going to come out flat and obviously not clipping. So it's just a way of getting a more accurate exposure, because it can come in really handy, and it's something I use all the time. Anyway, let's try and find another shot, because I've worked this one and I'm not really loving the photographs. One in front of the hand. So you know in Lightroom that's the end of the sequence. Alright, let's have my coffee. Yes, well that's certainly the place to go if you like trees, isn't it? Osservati, I believe it's pronounced. Not bad, I've checked. So yeah, if you like trees and you're around the Brecon Beacons, can't recommend the area enough. Really cool location, even though that wasn't the tree I was trying to find. Though in an upcoming video, I do find that tree. So yeah, do hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for that. So really excited to get to that. But also part 2 of that shoot, hopefully will be out on the same day as this video as well. So keep an eye out for that, because that was a really cool tree as well. Yes, even more trees. really amazing location. So do have a play with natural live view if you've got a Fuji, or flat mode if you've got a Canon, a Nikon, a Sony or something like that. Have a look, do some test shoots just to see how the histogram looks different, looking at the flat mode compared to how it does with the landscape or portrait mode, that sort of thing. But do some test shots just to see which gives you the more accurate version of the histogram, because of course when you're actually looking and taking photographs using a profile on the back of your camera, you're not actually seeing a very accurate version of the histogram. So do a bit of research, make sure you're confident that it's actually giving you the right information. But yet in high dynamic range scenes like the example I gave you with the thing on the shelf here, it's a really good tool to have, because it means you'll be able to see shadows and everything a lot clearer, and obviously get a more accurate histogram. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button, stay tuned for part 2 and part 3 when we actually do find that amazing tree, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.